Oh, hey there. Now, as you can tell, this isn't my normal setup. You see, I needed a secluded trip to the middle of nowhere right now. And so I decided on my cabin in the woods, because the world is kind of cooked right now. Because Diamond recently went bankrupt, so now that means I can't read my Marvel and indie comics the week they're supposed to come out. Even though I have very limited Marvel books on my pull list nowadays. However, now I get major spoilers for every new issue of the Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man, the topic of today's video. And all I want to do is read the new issue of Transformers. Anyways, so I'm trying to isolate myself, and the only form of entertainment I have out here is issues 7 through 12 of the most recent Ultimate Spider-Man run. Hey, wait a second. Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to another installment of the Ultimate Spider-Man retrospective. One of the many series on YouTube that covers the most recent Ultimate Spider-Man series. And, the last installment of this series was 5 months ago. Hey, I have a good reason this time, because there was only like 6 issues back when I first wanted to talk about it. So I guess now I'll have to make a new installment every 6 months with every subsequent story arc. Okay, you got the gist of things. Anyways, I thought this series would be a great capsule of my evolution on YouTube, because that first USM video was my first real example of making YouTube videos, and I really didn't know what I was doing back then. I still really don't know what I'm doing nowadays, but I have a tiny bit more experience, and I have a mic, and like the whole YouTuber setup. Isn't that neat? But before we continue, I thought it would be super helpful to recap the previous story arc, just to make sure the last video wasn't a total waste of time. So in preparation for this video, I read the whole series so far, all 12 issues, and here's what you missed from the first story arc. In this universe, Peter Parker wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider. Instead, he's happily married to MJ, and they have 2 kids together. And in this universe, Uncle Ben is still alive, and is in a sexy relationship with J. Jonah Jameson. Okay, maybe that's not true. And in issue 1, the Bugle is bought by Wilson Fisk, also known as the Kingpin. Remember this now. However, Peter still thinks something is missing in his life, and he doesn't know what. That is until one night when this universe's Tony Stark appears, telling Peter that he was supposed to be one of the greatest superheroes in the world, but that was ruined by the Maker, and he gives Peter the choice to become Spider-Man again. And, well, you're never gonna guess what he chooses. Of course he becomes Spider-Man. Then there would be no comic. At the same time, we also get introduced to a brand new Green Goblin, who instead of being a villain, is a vigilante. And after an impromptu team-up, Peter accidentally reveals his identity. And then we quickly learn that the new Green Goblin is Harry Osborn in this universe. And the two were never actually childhood friends, so definitely a different dynamic than before. Anyways, the two team up to take down Kingpin's crime empire, and, it doesn't go too well for them. And what I mean by that is that they get their asses kicked by Kingpin. Man, that guy can punch. While this is going on, Ben and Jonah start a brand new newspaper together, simply titled, The Paper. And now I've kind of fully caught you up already. I probably forgot a side plot or two, and some major character interactions, but you got the main gist of it. If you want to get a more in-depth look through of this story arc, just read the damn comic. Or watch my last Ultimate Spider-Man video. Hint, hint. Now, before we continue, I want to state that there will be full spoilers for issues 7 through 12 of this series. If you haven't read any of those issues, you've been warned. Or if you don't care, welcome. Now, I've heard a lot of complaints from people stating that not a lot happens in this story arc, and instead is a lot of character moments instead, just like the original Ultimate Spider-Man series. And I think that's very intentional, because the OG Ultimate Spider-Man series felt more like a teen drama than a superhero comic at some points. And not one of the shitty ones too, like one of the good ones. Like, this is a really hard question to answer. Veronica Mars is pretty damn great. Well, at least the first 2 seasons are. And this new Ultimate Spider-Man feels the same way, but with different vibes, and you can totally see that in these 12 issues. Now, the story arc is super weird, because on one hand, not a lot of stuff happens, but at the same time, so much shit happens. So, where to start? I'm just gonna ramble on and see what happens. 3, 2, 1, penguins. Let's start off with this new iteration of the Sinister Six. Now, I already went through this last video, But there was a lot to add ever since that came out in, July. That seems like forever ago. So basically, after issue 6, Kingpin decides to hire his own team of exterminators to take out some spiders. And goblins, I guess? Starting off, we got Kingpin. He's big. He loves the nets. He probably could have taken care of Peter and Harry on his own. But whatever, it's more interesting this way. Kraven the Hunter! He's a billionaire and was born from a long line of hunters. So basically just any other version of Kraven. Mr. Negative! CEO of Feast Foundation by day, and by night he runs the demons. So basically just normal-ass Mr. Negative. Black Cat. No, not Felicia Hardy, but instead, he's a dude. And is still kind of fine, not gonna lie. I hope nothing bad happens to him. Oh. We'll come back to this later. And instead, he's Felicia's father instead. Mysterio! Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's not really much about him right now. So I'm just going to move on. So, yeah. The Mole Man! Somebody got confused and ended up in the wrong comic. But that's fine, because the Fantastic Four technically don't really exist in this universe. So I think it's fine. Anyways, I feel like the Sinister Six don't really do a lot in this story arc. All they do is form, and then have a meeting after Black Cat gets sent to the ER. And that's it. Afterwards, Felicia takes over the mantle of Black Cat, which will probably play a huge role in future story arcs. This issue is complete clickbait. Felicia appears in like 3 panels max. Some members of the Sinister Six do appear throughout the series, like Mr. Negative in issue 11, but besides that, they don't really do much. Oh yeah, Black Cat. So one day during patrol, Spidey and Harry run into the Black Cat and get into a bit of a conflict that ends with Harry blasting Black Cat off a building after Harry gets a mental message from his dead father. Yippee! Anyways, this makes Harry kind of spaz out and makes Peter a little cautious and questions him, but eventually brushes it off after Harry threatens Peter. Now, as a reader, you may think that Peter is being super oblivious to the beginning of Harry's turn to the dark side. But I interpret this in a way differently than others, because I believe Peter thinks that his friend will start to change for the better, but probably won't, and Harry will probably become a huge enemy for Peter. They'll probably become friends to enemies in the coming story arcs. If I had to guess, around issue 25-ish? Only time will tell. For my returning viewers from the last episode, I definitely think Hickman is going to turn Harry from hero to villain. Yes, it's definitely the most generic option out of the 3 that I suggested last time. But he's probably going to throw a Hickman twist, just to make it less generic. And that would really help. Something that really works well in this series is Ben Parker and J. Jonah Jameson's side plot. I mean, I guess it's kind of important because the second trade paperback is called The Paper. Or at least that's what it's called for now on the solicitations. Maybe it'll change soon. I don't know. I don't work for Marvel, as you can tell. Also kind of related, but why did Marvel choose this issue cover out of all of them to use for the cover of the second story arc? I mean, literally every other issue cover is better. This one is just kind of okay. It wouldn't intrigue me as a reader. Why, Marvel? Why? This is literally the worst choice Marvel could have done for the cover. Anyways, a bunch of people will still pick it up. It's fucking Spider-Man, for Pete's sakes. Back on track, I really enjoy Ben and Jonah's dynamic here. Even in issue 10, because this issue has no relevance of action or Spider-Man, and instead focuses on Jonah and Ben investigating. And you know, they're really good at their job. I was thoroughly hooked on this issue. And Marco Cicchetto wasn't even on interiors. It was the usual fill-in artist. I forgot your name. I'm sorry. You're great. These old white dudes are so good at their job, they investigated a bunch of different mysteries in this current Ultimate Universe. But also, at the same time, they found out that Harry is the Green Goblin. All of this in the same damn issue. And later on, Ben finds out that Peter is Spider-Man shortly after, and reveals this to him in issue 11. And this will definitely play a huge plot point in future issues of the series. Jonah and Ben are so gay for each other. I love it. Usually I'm not the hugest fan of J. Jonah Jameson in Spidey comics, just because he's so repetitive and is always like, "That Spider-Man is a menace!" However, in this run, Jonah is a complex character who you get to know a lot across these 12 issues. And is a huge departure from the regular Jameson. I mean, he's kind of annoyed by Spidey, but only because in the first month of the paper being in publication, 8 of their top 10 stories are all about Spider-Man. So I guess he has some kind of form of competence, instead of being a one-dimensional character every time, or just an obstacle for Peter. Except when Chip Zdarsky writes Jonah, when Zdarsky was writing him in the secondary Spidey book, specifically titled Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man. And side note, this book is great! The book starts out kind of slow and tries to be more of a superhero sitcom than anything, and most of the jokes are very hit or miss. But when this book gets going, it becomes some of the best Spidey comics in recent memories. And especially compared to the repetitive state of the mainline Amazing Spider-Man title. And this has been going on for the last, 20 years for the title. Did you know that Chip Zdarsky almost wrote this comic? Yeah, Marvel offered him this title before Hickman. I would have loved to see what he would have done with this series. Whatever, this has gotten way off topic for my own good. Anyways, in conclusion, issues 7 through 12 is mostly just a lot of setup and character moments. However, it's still worth reading. But just get ready for a whole lot of dialogue. And this contributes to the fact that this series is a very slow burn. But there's nothing wrong with that. If the series is still entertaining me, I'll still read it. I'm still enjoying this comic a whole lot. And there's nothing wrong with that. Until issue 12. Then shit gets wild. Now, this seems to be a very insignificant issue, and focuses on Watson family drama. And there's nothing wrong with that. I still enjoyed it. But something is weird with Peter. He isn't doing much. He isn't talking or anything. During Christmas, after MJ gets off the phone with Gwen, we soon learn that Harry has gone missing, and MJ realizes that this isn't the real Peter, and we soon learn that Peter's artificial intelligence from his Picotech suit has recreated his body. Okay, let me explain. There's something I haven't talked about yet. Peter's suit. Now, when he first got it, he had his own artificial intelligence with it. And it basically created the basis and sculpting of Peter's suit. But we soon learn in issue 8 that the Picotech can talk. However, it doesn't have any real evil intentions so far, and seems to care dearly for Peter and his family. I've heard some fan theories saying that the AI will become this universe's version of Venom, or Ultimate Venom if you will, and I can totally see that happening, because the suit kind of has a symbiote-like texture to it, if you will. My fan theory is that the Maker will corrupt the technology in that Ultimate Incursion event that we'll probably see this summer. Anyways, if Peter's Picotech suit has recreated his body, then where is Peter and Harry? Well, in a bombshell of a final page, we learn that Harry and Peter were captured by Kraven the Hunter. And that's how you end the first year of Ultimate Spider-Man. I cannot wait to see what happens next. And at the time of writing this, issue 13 comes out tomorrow. However, my copy will be delayed a week because Diamond is a useless company, and now my Marvel and indie books get delayed a week. Yay! Anyways, let's look past my complaints and look in the future of the series and analyze the future solicitations. Issues 13 and 14 will be titled Kraven's Hunt, and will focus on Harry and Peter fending off Kraven the Hunter. I'm excited to see what this version of Kraven will be like, and I hope he's progressively different from the mainline Kraven we've seen in the 616 universe, because there isn't really a big difference between the two so far. However, I hate when every new Kraven the Hunter storyline comes out, and it's always compared to Kraven's Last Hunt. I mean, even in the issue synopsis, the issue directly compares this to Kraven's Last Hunt. And I get it, that's Kraven's most iconic storyline. But I don't know, it gets a little repetitive after a while. It's like if every time we got a new Joker storyline, they're directly compared to Batman the Killing Joke. However, I'm still super hyped to see what happens. And then we got issue 15, which will introduce the Ultimate Sandman, and it seems that Peter will run into him during a family vacation. And I'm excited to see how this will play out. Sounds like a lot of fun. And announced today, issue 16 will focus on Peter versus Mysterio. And I always love a good old Spider-Man versus Mysterio storyline. Not you. Anyways, in conclusion, for real this time, Ultimate Spider-Man is clearly building to something amazing, spectacular, web of? And some may say ultimate. Right now, I have no idea where this series will go. Only time will tell. I'll see you back in July to talk about the third story arc. Anyways, I think it's time to finally come home and read something else besides Spider-Man comics. Maybe To Kill a Mockingbird. Or Sandman. Well, maybe not that. But before I sign off, Jonathan Hickman, please introduce Ultimate Big Wheel, and my life is yours. Rah! Big Wheel!